Every day you eat foods that contain ingredients that are promoting disease and making you fat. Food manufacturers use these ingredients because they are a cheap alternative to other ingredients and they make the food taste good. Today I'm going to tell you these 4 ingredients that you need to look out for when looking for foods to eat. The first ingredient is partially hydrogenated oils, or otherwise known as trans fats. Trans fats have been well documented and researched and have shown that they decrease the good cholesterol, they increase your bad cholesterol, insulin levels, and triglyceride levels, all which help promote the diseases I just mentioned before. Foods to avoid that contain trans fats are butters and margarines and deep fried foods. You want to try to use olive oil for cooking instead of other shortenings and butters. Again, look for partially hydrogenated vegetable oil in your ingredient list on food labels to find out if that food contains this damaging ingredient. The FDA is actually now requiring food manufacturers to list trans fats on the label, on the nutrition facts, and tell you exactly how many milligrams or grams it contains of trans fats, just like it does with saturated fats. But don't count on that as your solution. You still need to look at that ingredient list and find out if there's some hidden food in there, such as partially hydrogenated vegetable oil or a trans fat. The second nutrient is steroid-rich oils, or otherwise called interesterified soybean oil. This ingredient was used to actually replace trans fats in most foods because they thought it was the healthier alternative. Researchers are now finding that it actually does significantly decrease your good cholesterol, and it can increase your blood sugar levels by as much as 20%. This type of reaction definitely promotes fat storage and obesity. So again, what we thought was going to be a healthy alternative to the trans fats may be just as bad as trans fats themselves. So now, in your ingredient list, you need to look for partially hydrogenated vegetable oil, or trans fat, and then also look for steroid-rich oils, or otherwise called interesterified soybean oil, and try to avoid these 2 nutrients or ingredients at all costs because they're going to help promote the disease and promote fat storage, which then is leading to obesity. Your third ingredient to look out for is high fructose corn syrup. High fructose corn syrup is probably in over 50% of foods on the grocery store shelves nowadays. It's in pastas and breads and pastries and sodas. It's in fruit juices. It's in Heinz ketchup. It's in some breakfast cereals, Snapple, Sunny Delight. You can't avoid it, it almost seems. What you can avoid is these complex processed foods that most likely are going to contain the high fructose corn syrup, the interesterified soybean oil, and the trans fats. Look for foods that have minimal ingredients, or look for foods that do not contain an ingredient list at all, which are going to be your fruits and your vegetables, because then those are going to be obviously natural sources and they're not going to be filled with all of these ingredients that the food manufacturers use to make the food taste good, but it could really be damaging your health and your longevity for that matter. The final ingredient you need to be aware of is white refined flour. Again, this is an ingredient that you're going to find in almost all processed foods. What you want to avoid is the white refined flour because it causes the blood sugars to rapidly rise, which then increases insulin levels, and all this again promotes fat storage. The research has shown that you want to have a low blood sugar level and you want to have a slower insulin response to that blood sugar, because then the calories and nutrients are going to be more used for energy than they are for the fat storage. Another ingredient along with the white refined flour is what you might see in an ingredient list sometimes is called just wheat flour. And all this is another name for white refined wheat flour. So they're legal to say that, but again, it's kind of a little deceptive because you're thinking that you're eating whole wheat, and of course we tell you to eat whole wheat or whole grain products, but it's really just another name for white refined wheat flour. So what should you look for instead of white refined flour? Look for whole grain as one of the top 2 ingredients in your ingredient list. If it contains whole grain, then you're going to get your vitamins, your minerals, and your fiber. Things that are going to help promote a slower blood sugar and insulin response, which means you're going to be able to utilize those calories more for energy instead of storing them as fat. Also, just try to eat more fruits and vegetables. I'm not saying you should be eating a low carbohydrate diet, but the carbs that you do eat, you need to be choosing fruits, vegetables, and whole grain carbohydrates rather than the refined products, because those are the products that are going to be able to provide, again, those vitamins, nutrients, minerals, fiber, to give you an overall healthier diet and help prevent some of the diseases that are out there today. In summary, you want to review your food labels, and you want to avoid the foods that contain partially hydrogenated vegetable oils, interesterified fats or steroid-rich oils, high fructose corn syrup, and white refined flour. If any of these ingredients are listed within the top 5 ingredients of your ingredient list on the food label, you want to pass on that food and choose something else. Ideally, you want to choose foods that have minimal ingredients or do not have an ingredient list at all, because those are going to be the foods that are healthier for you. To find out more about how food manufacturers are making you fat, visit www.realworldweightlossexpert.com for a free special report.